What's going on, Washington Commanders Nation? Fresh off the presses, Kliff Kingsbury, who was a formality and a done deal to be the Las Vegas Raiders' new head coach out there in Vegas, has turned down the offensive coordinator job. Is this a sign for Caleb Williams being a Washington Commander? If you don't know who Kliff Kingsbury was, that is the former head coach of the Arizona Cardinals. That is the former college coach of Baker Mayfield, Patrick Goat Mahomes, and Kyler Murray. And you know, he coached this guy, Kyler Murray, over there in Arizona. It looked good. It was working out until it didn't in Arizona. Kliff is a guy seen to be an offensive mastermind, better suited to be an offensive coordinator than to be a head coach. He spent the last couple years at USC, University of Southern Cal, as a senior offensive analyst and QB coach for USC. The current QB coach and analyst for Caleb Williams of the University of Southern Cal Trojans. If this ain't the clearest indicator of he felt like he may be getting his guy in DC. He has pulled out of the Raiders job. People have spent the last couple days lauding and applauding the staff Antonio Pierce has been putting together there in Vegas with Kliff Kingsbury, with Marvin Lewis. He's surrounding himself with former head coaches and experienced guys and cutting-edge, innovative play callers like Kliff Kingsbury. Well, now he has to be the leading candidate here in D.C. Remember, I told y'all earlier I was cool with Chip Kelly coming here? Stop the fucking count. Give me Kliff Kingsbury here in D.C. Give it to me. Let's get it. Stop the count. I need it. I need it here in D.C. Kliff Kingsbury, dude got the smooth swagger to him. He got the ASMR voice going on. I remember he used to do the draft house every year where he would have that fly-ass mansion on full display during the draft, especially during like the pandemic season. But this excites me. I seen that we're also interviewing Brian Johnson of the Eagles. There must be a Rooney rule for hiring coordinators because I see absolutely no fucking reason why Brian Johnson should be getting an interview. He just got fired after his first year as the Eagles OC for a reason. Brian Johnson is 36-year-old Eric Bieniemy. They're the same person. The only difference is age. That offense did not make any sense, and I've seen Eagles fans talk about him like we talk about EB here all year. Absolutely not. Brian Johnson can go in the Eric Bieniemy conversation for OC, where not fucking happening. Back to Kliff Kingsbury. Look at the ties, man. The writing's starting to be on the wall. Jalen and the boys in the group chat keep telling me we're going to somehow end up with Caleb. I keep telling them it's not happening, y'all, but we shall see now. Why would Kliff Kingsbury suddenly back out of the Raiders job? He just pulled a Ben Johnson on the Raiders. He took the job verbally, hasn't shook hands on it yet. And now suddenly he's become a leading candidate for the Washington job. Colin Cowherd immediately quote tweeted Adam Schefter and said, yeah, because Kliff is headed east, far east, to coach the Commanders. And you know, there was buzz this week about Caleb not necessarily wanting to be a Bear. All of these rumors and all of the polarizing and negative rhetoric about Caleb Williams is stemming from his pageant father running his mouth everywhere he can. His father immediately called Colin Cowherd and shut down those narratives, saying, we will gladly play for anyone that drafts us. But there could be truth to the matter. My boy Jalen, he's telling me there may be truth for the matter. And if you don't know, Jalen of Bleeding B&G, him and his family knows the Williams family. So there's definitely some merit to some of those things. But wouldn't Caleb to DC have to be a thing for Kliff to pull out of the Raiders job and come straight here to DC to be our OC? DC to OC, that sounds so fire, by the way. But Kliff Kingsbury is a much younger Chip Kelly. Different offensive philosophy, but they're saying, I'm looking at my boy Graf of the Raiders Oakland Las Vegas podcast. Apparently, there's been some contract disputes, and some of the negotiating wasn't mathing. Math wasn't mathing for Kliff Kingsbury in Las Vegas, but this is huge for Washington. Even if it is for Drake May or for Jaden Daniels, Kliff Kingsbury is a guy that knows college quarterbacks, and he knows how to develop a guy. Him and Kyler didn't really mesh well in Arizona, and he's also a guy that, while offensive savvy, the league is not knocking down his door for head coaching jobs at this current juncture. So he would be a safe candidate, a strong candidate to be our offensive coordinator and to be nothing more than our offensive coordinator. This is a wild twist on a Saturday. I wasn't thinking about Kliff Kingsbury because he had already took a job. He's somebody I definitely wanted. When I seen he was signing with the Raiders the other day, I was like, damn, look at us taking way too long to get it done. Albert Breer says a contractual hang-up led to there being an opening on Kliff Kingsbury, and the Commanders among teams that swooped in and tried to hire Kingsbury as offensive coordinator. Kliff to DC is very much in play. It makes a whole bunch of sense, and it makes it look like the Dan Quinn hire is looking like a great pick so far, especially with this guy. He could become a head coach in a couple years, possibly, but he's not going to be one right away. And he doesn't have to face Andy Reid, Jim Harbaugh, and Sean Payton's team. It looks like a match made in heaven in D.C., in a division in the NFC East where nobody's repeated as champion since the Donovan McNabb-led Philadelphia Eagles did back in 2004. This is a spot. This is an attractive destination, and I'm loving the coaching triumvirate trio of Dan Quinn, Kliff Kingsbury, and Joe Witt Jr. Let's build, baby. I told y'all Dan Quinn was not going to have any problem building the staff. Let's get Kliff Kingsbury in here, and let's poach the number one pick from Chicago and reunite Caleb Williams with Kliff Kingsbury in D.C. I'm all for it. I literally just told you I'm not talking about Caleb Williams to D.C. anymore, but this makes eyebrows perk up on a Saturday evening when I see that Kliff Kingsbury turned down the Raiders job that was already a handshake agreement. But when you don't have pen to paper, when you don't have it on wax, guys can always Josh McDaniels you, could always Ben Johnson you. And speaking of Ben Johnson, it's come out, both sides are posturing on the Ben Johnson front. It's come out from Ben Johnson's camp that he was not interested in how confident Washington's ownership group was, felt too basketball-y. And it's also come out on Mike Garafolo on Washington's end saying Ben Johnson didn't interview well. We didn't want that nigga. So both sides are doing the politicking, the Game of Thrones style posturing to come out who won the breakup, who won the divorce, who won the breakup. Both sides are putting out and issuing memos on who won. Ultimately, who gives a fuck? He didn't come here. He wanted to stay in Detroit. The limelight was too big for him. He bitched out. He pussied out. He not ready to be great. Best of luck back in Detroit. But back to Washington. Do not interview young EB. I know there must be a Rooney rule for coordinators as well. Brian Johnson's not it. EB is not it. I like the idea of Chip Kelly, but I also like the idea of a 44-year-old OC rather than 60-year-old Chip Kelly. Kliff Kingsbury is now the leader in the doghouse to be Washington's offensive coordinator. Get that signature on wax this weekend. I don't care if y'all got to fire up the jet, go to his little fancy mansion and listen to his ASMR voice in person because it's time to lock him in. I am very excited about this. This is news I was looking forward to because it's becoming slim pickings for Washington in this offensive coordinator search. Because when you wait for the first week of February to start hiring your coaches, you're not going to have a wide enough crop to pick from as if you would have got it done earlier in the process. I'm digging it. Kliff Kingsbury, you are a Washington Commander, leader in the doghouse to be the new offensive coordinator. And you know, if Kliff Kingsbury's coming, that's a direct tie to Caleb Williams. Let's see. You know, Chicago also interviewed Kliff Kingsbury, but ended up going with Shane Waldron from Seattle as their new OC. Get it done, Washington. Bring him home, Josh and DQ. Let's build us a staff. Until next time, hail to the Washington Commanders. Deuces.